So is this when they've always been okay and then suddenly?
All of a sudden something there.
Okay.
So I say you must take those dogs to your vet to get a full-on veterinary examination and make sure, do everything, bloods, x-rays, whatever you have to do, okay, to make sure that we can treat that dog. And once you start treating it, problems go back to normality.
Welcome back to the Pause and Effect podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kara, a dedicated veterinarian wanting to open up on what can seem like difficult conversations. Today we're addressing dog bites, their prevention and management. Joining me is Daniel Stewart, an animal trainer from KZN, who will share his expertise on this important topic. Welcome back to the Pause and Effect podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kara, and today I have my very special guest, Daniel Stewart, back in what I want to call the studio, but it's actually my home. And it's been a year, Daniel.
It's unbelievable. How fast has it been?
So my first ever podcast was with you as my guest. What a privilege. When I look back at it now, it's been a journey since, and just not only to honor the fact that it's been a year to have you back, but just because we have so much to talk about. And one of the subjects that you're very passionate about was very relevant for you recently with your trip away. I'll let you tell us a bit more about it.
Yeah.
So we're talking about bite prevention today. So how to prevent being bitten and your dog's being bitten, or you're having your dog bite someone else.
Yeah, correct. And I think living safely with pets is so important. Even with my job, I often get people phone me up and say, my dog's turned aggressive. It's bitten one person, and I have to go in there, and the dog gets blamed all the time. Where in fact we could actually look at ourselves and go, hold on, could we have changed our behavior to prevent that from happening? And I believe we can. So yes, today, hopefully we're going to have a nice little chat about it.
Absolutely. Let me start with the opening question. Why do dogs bite? Why?
I find a lot of time, dogs don't want to injure us. They're social creatures. They live within our home, so they've got everything that they want. But a lot of the time it's out of a reaction, so it's a unknown, uncontrolled reaction, that's a lot of the time, or it's a fear-based scenario, or going down the line it could also be pain.
Okay.
But that fear base works on aggressive behavior or total fear behavior, and we're too close. We just getting into their face way too much.
So let's unpack, like you're saying, the different scenarios, and then let's discuss how to identify it, because I'm assuming that the main thing here is to try and prevent it happening. And it happens, you obviously have to deal with the consequences, and we can talk about that too, as to what the consequences may be. But let's talk about those various things. So let's start perhaps by discussing the dog that's living with you, and you have children maybe who are a little bit vulnerable, and you want to prevent a bite within your home with your own dog. So let's start with, what do you most commonly come across?
Well, a lot of the time, we're not even going to talk breeds. And a lot of people go, oh, it's because of that breed. No. I'm going to say every single dog has a potential to do damage to a person. But why does it do it? And as you say, we're starting off with children. A lot of the time, it's toddlers. They're crawling around the floor. They're just starting to, in their behavior stages, like exploratory. So in other words, they see a dog, they don't know what it is, they go across to it, they climb on top of the back of the dog. Some dogs are tolerant, but other dogs are not.
Okay.
And I've even seen with your especially your larger breed dogs, a child might climb on top of the dog. The dog grumbles, turns its head rapidly, stands up to get its balance right. The child falls on the floor now because it was on top of the dog, and the child starts screaming. Oh, the dog's attacked the child. No, it hasn't. Your child should have been supervised better, So it comes back down to human error as opposed to dog error. The dog was actually doing the right thing by creating avoidance of the child. That's all it was doing. It certainly wasn't trying to attack your child, whilst the child would be more damaged, So that to me is a common for youngsters, for new families. They get the dog, they get the child, they get the house, and they put them all together. But living within that is an issue. So
there's a lack of awareness.
A lack of understanding that, hold on a minute, that dog might just not be in the right mood state to have a child climbing on its back.
So you're saying that obviously it's a mood state awareness. So some dogs are very tolerant, but even those tolerant dogs may not be in the right mood state on that day.
100%.
Okay.
100%.
Or, like you made mention of before, that they're hurt.
Yes.
I mean, anybody's would react if
especially your older dogs.
Yeah.
You know, you get a little bit of arthritis and stuff like that. And yeah, we could sort out the dog problem from that point of view. You know, take it to the vet, get some regular meds into it, and pain killers and stuff like that. But if the dog is feeling vulnerable and it knows that it's in that state of maybe someone's going to hurt it, that's when also going to be a reaction. So if your dog is under veterinary care, then keep your children away from it more. You know, be conscious about it.
Yeah. So what are the kind of signs? Obviously, you don't always get the signs. You may have a dog that the first time they actually bite the child or bite the person. I want to use an example. My Rotti, great dog, very good dog, but he likes to get out occasionally. People have seen on my social media account the frustrations of that. He's getting better, training and making sure, because there are consequences to that as well, which we've spoken about before. But he likes to get out, especially when the bins are outside, because it's very tempting. And when we try and move him from it, particularly by using our bodies to shift him in, he becomes frustrated and wants and threatens to bite. So the first thing we'll get is a little growl. So we now know that if we go out with a lead and we put the lead around his neck, he'll come in with the lead. He's used to walking on the lead. But if you try and shove him, he actually will threaten you. So the scary thing is with a dog like Roach, the Rottweiler, the consequences are huge. Do you find with people, and you say we're not going to do breeds, and I agree, let's not talk breeds, because some of the more aggressive dogs I've come across have been the small breeds. But why is it that they always get a bad rap, the large breeds? Is it because they do real damage? Is it because when they bite, they actually bite really badly?
I think it's a really good question, because I find when a little breed dog starts going off its nut, okay, and it shows a lot, it barks a lot, it growls a lot, it snaps a lot, it runs up and runs away, and people just laugh at it.
They laugh, yeah.
They think it's funny, but the dog is actually going through a very stressful mood state at that moment. So we're putting so much pressure on the dog, okay? But with a bigger dog, it means it more. You can visually see it a lot more clearer than this funny little thing trying to show show that it's a big enough dog to actually do some damage. And so your bigger breeds are, when they're really vocal. You know, they're kind of like a grottal vocal kind of scenario. So people then take cognizance of it.
Okay.
And I think also it's just from a historical point of view that a bigger dog can do more damage. A little dog, you just push it away with your foot kind of scenario. But in my opinion, it's exactly the same thing. Those two scenarios, that dog is feeling the same. And it's an emotional state that the dog is in. Why must we put that dog through that state? Let's rather keep a calm, relaxed kind of environment for everybody. And then we don't put those threats in place.
I agree totally. And so let's talk about those warning signs. What can owners identify as being that heightened or that emotional state that you need to get your dog out of? If you notice that, you don't ever want to put your dog, we know most owners have great intentions. It's an awareness thing again. They're not aware that the dog's in a heightened emotional state, and then they're not aware of why they sometimes biting. I'm very aware, but because we have conversations like this, I know now how to handle it. You know, he's not a bad dog. I'm not about to rehome him. I just know how to handle that situation. But obviously, if he bit someone, it could become, and I know we're going to discuss the liability around being or having your dog bite someone. How can owners identify that state? What are some of the signs that they display? And like you say, maybe are more obvious in the large breed dogs than the little small breeds.
Slight sidestep is that you get a lot of people come along and say, the dog showed no signs of a bite. Rubbish. The dog will always give you some form of a indication. We just don't see it.
Okay.
So your most common ones where people do see it is that it's stiff bodies, closed mouth, slightly forward-looking kind of scenario. So it's not very predominant, but it really is just a little bit. And I see it as, I'm sure this is incorrect, but I see it, they pump more blood into their paws. You know, it just pulls them up a little bit. And it's just those little things. And people see this and go, wow, that we better be careful of and back off, okay? What they don't see a lot of the time is the child scenario is that the child starts walking up to the dog stands up and walks away. And they go, okay, well, the dog must wants to go for water. No, the dog is actually creating avoidance. That is a clinical sign, a straight sign that the dog is not happy with the child. And it's doing this over and over, maybe a couple of days down the line, and then something happens. And the people go, a dog just showed no signs whatsoever and still bit my child. Well, actually, you weren't paying attention enough.
It was trying to avoid the situation.
It was trying to avoid it, and you kept that dog and that child in the same room, I'm going to call it, or the same space, and not allowing the dog to actually move away properly, and also stopping the child from approaching the dog.
Welcome back to Just for Pets. You're with Dr. Cara.
Hello, Doctor. It's Chanel the Persian. And, I can't seem to stop retching to get this hairball up.
Are you on a special diet?
Excuse me?
Hairball control food will really help. And maybe some Laxapet. And lucky for you, Just for Pets have a big range.
Well, how early can I get some?
Order today and we'll deliver pronto.
Wow, I feel better already.
Justforpets.co.za. Vet approved, pet adored. Get it all to your door.
Before we resume our conversation, let's address a vital aspect to pet care, your puppy's nutrition. Allow me to introduce you to a personal favorite, Ultra Pet's premium recipe for large breed puppies. I've relied on this for all my dogs, and it's truly made a difference. This puppy food offers a balanced blend of nutrients, with 30% protein, 15% fat, and 4% fiber, supporting your companion's growth and development. Featuring a delectable chicken and rice flavor, Ultra Pet caters for even the pickiest eaters. It's available in 2 pack sizes, a 8 kg and a 20 kg, and it's suitable for households of any size. What sets this puppy food apart is its meticulous formulation, developed by experts for a complete and balanced diet. It includes essential vitamins and minerals and prebiotics for a healthy digestive system and a robust immune system. With high-quality protein sources and essential fatty acids, this food promotes muscle development, healthy skin and coat. Plus calcium and phosphorus strengthen bones and teeth. Ultra Pet has mastered the balance between nutrition and taste, making it a top choice for puppy food. Find it at your local pet store and give it to your companion for the best start. Your pet will thank you, and you'll appreciate Ultra Pet's commitment to optimal nutrition. Now, let's get back to our conversation. So some of the signs that you say they're moving away, things like yawning, turning their heads. I mean, those are the signs you've mentioned before.
So you often, moving the head is again avoidance. All right?
And eye contact.
So yes, it's just no, don't look at me. Hopefully it goes away. Hopefully everything will come right. And we see it even if you look at human body language. We can put up barriers. We can, start, looking for those butterflies and those squirrels, just trying to avoid the discussion, possibly. But when you're looking at a dog yawning, stretching, shaking, okay,
tail tucked in.
Let's put the shaking, those things.
Yeah.
They're all stress relievers.
Okay.
So the dog might be under stress. It moves away. It tries to relieve that stress by yawning, stretching, or shaking. Okay, and then the dog will then go, okay, let me see if I can cope again. Okay. And the dog is working this out for itself. The tails side of it, the tail tucking, it's another clear indication that the dog is fearful.
Okay.
And the tail tucks and it tries to
make
walk away.
themselves
And
smaller
it's trying to make it
sometimes.
smaller,
Okay.
and it's trying to avoid everything, eye contacts again. And now we just keep on pushing that pressure. And the dog has to explode some way. It doesn't know how to do it. That method is not working. Let's go to another level. And often those other levels, that's when aggression, that's when the bite comes out. But we haven't seen the first section of the dog is trying to not do it.
So I know we're going to go back to this scenario, but I want to go on to our next potential discussion, and that is what I see quite a lot, generally walking the dogs actually, rather than in my own home, which I'm really grateful for, and that is dog-on-dog attack. So you're walking your dogs, and the dogs are all very excited at the gate, and then next thing they pull into each other and they have this big commotion.
You're talking about your dogs?
No, fortunately not. I was saying, like, in my home, generally they're fine. We don't have any frustration associated with that. But I see it on the dog walks when I walk my dogs, and the other dogs in the neighboring properties get really frustrated to the point where they have a fight.
Yes.
So can we discuss that? Can we discuss whether, especially if that's happening in any of the listeners' homes, how they can handle that, why that happens? Is it a case that these are two dogs that don't get on? Is this something that can be remedied? Because I'm sure that that's something that you're contacted about. The dogs are fighting inter-house.
Yes. And then, of course, people get bitten because they try and separate the dogs.
Yeah.
And that's another issue where we come along and simply, but as you say, is that it is a simple frustration. So fence fighting is dog outside, dog on the other side of the fences. But then you get two dogs on the inside of the fence that are still running around. They're normally loose, and they bump into each other and they just take it out on each other, where you're still walking past the road and everything's cool for you. That kind of scenario is, those dogs, in my opinion, are not getting enough stimulation at home.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of the time, and it is life, so we can't blame anybody, but people get up, they leave for work at 7 o'clock in the morning. The dog stays by them, or the dogs stay by themselves. Self-exercise. We've got a big property.
Yeah.
The dogs don't go around that property often. They don't get that kind of stimulation, that mental stimulation and physical stimulation that they need. So now they take it out on you walking down the road with your dog. And that builds up that frustration because they're just not releasing it. It's like it's always advised that we go to gym as often as possible, and we release it. We feel really, really good. We don't need to then go along and start a brawl at the bar, But with these dogs, that's what's happening. Okay. Is that it's a pent-up energy that is not being released.
And they're in a heightened state. It's exciting to see another dog.
Absolutely. And then they start learning that actually it's a good feeling. It sounds surprising, but a good fight is a good feeling. It's a good endorphin-releasing behavior. And therefore it becomes a learned behavior.
So it's reinforced every time.
It's reinforced every time that you walk past. So you're the cause of it, walking past. And
we made them go away.
Precisely. The dogs actually left. And we won. And so those are the kind of things that are actually happening. But the owners, they come back at 5, 6 o'clock at night and they go, okay, I must feed the dog. The dog then puts more energy into it because they're doing the best thing, the dog, and they're feeding it really good veterinary food, but there's a lot of energy there. And then tomorrow, the day starts again, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. And we're not giving our dogs enough mental stimulation as well as physical. A lot of my clients, they run with their dogs, which is great, absolutely wonderful. So they might run 10, 15 Ks a day, which is really, really good for that dog. But back at home, what mental stimulation are they doing? They also need to do that. It has to be a balanced scenario.
So, again, we'll be unpacking some of the stuff, but the other scenario I wanted to talk to you about is you have your dog maybe on a lead, who knows, or you've just arrived at the property and you get out of your car and your dog bites someone. Like, why does that happen? Why do they do that? Why do dogs want to sometimes bite people that they don't know?
I think it's a really good question, and it's not as easy as other questions, okay, and or scenarios. I've had this a number of times where you will have certain people, and it's not always a race. It's sometimes an age. So younger people will get bitten quicker than older people will, for some strange reason. And it is, I find, like arriving at your place now, you've got 3 big dogs arrive and they stick their head onto my lap, into my car. And I'm like, okay, guys, hi. I'm not fazed by dogs. So I will look at them and I'll read these dogs really, really quickly to go, right, what they're thinking of, and they go, okay, fine, I feel confident to stand up. But what I find is that children, I'm going to say, especially your younger but coming up to teenagers size, so 9 to 15-year-olds kind of thing. Those children they get out and they see a big dog and they immediately they go into a bit of an anxiety-based behavior, you know. Their body language is showing the dog going, hold on, there's something wrong with this kid, you know, so let me just sort him out quickly. And from that point of view, we're just not educating our kids to be able to go, hold on, be relaxed.
So it's a body language, it's an aura that you're giving off.
Yes.
And I mean, I say this really, the way you describe it is so true. Watching you get out the car, and I mean, obviously you know that if my dogs were aggressive, I would have locked them up. That's the first thing. But if people get out of their car and they're going, oh, my dogs know, they can sense that. And I'm obviously aware of people who don't necessarily, or are not fond of dogs. I will be more respectful. But my son does the same. So he'll get out of the car, and he arrived, in fact, that it was very like perfect timing. He got out of the car yesterday and he was coming towards the door. And he was like, no, 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 no. And the arms were flapping because he was carrying something. He didn't want the dogs to come near him. And the dogs were harassing him because of his behavior. He was getting himself into a heightened state. And if anything, rather than, I said, just walk, you know, walk. And then as soon as he started walking straight, they left him alone. But he was doing this turning in circles, arms in the air.
Noise.
No.
High-pitched sounds,
Absolutely.
That kind of stuff.
So having unpacked all these things, from my understanding, what we need to perhaps try and equip listeners with now is your knowledge on how to get it right. So you say often it's the kids. Where do we start? Do we start with them?
Yeah, I mean, there's different levels of knowledge that adults and children need to have, and it's. I do find that. I mean, let's take it out of this different contexts. Is that we could look at rabies, and if you're looking at rabies on how many people die around the world of rabies, then you look at the age group of people dying of rabies. It's always youngsters. You know, it's 11 to 15-year-old boys. Now, why? You know, and we're going to look at it and going to go, well, because they tease dogs, they don't listen to their parents because they're changing their attitude, they're a little bit more manly, teenagers. I'm going to call it, you know, that kind of stuff. We're all there, we've all been there, but it's that age group. So we could change and categorize the two different age groups of early 20s and that 11 to 15-year-olds, where the younger group is still a bit of sponges. You know, we can still educate them. We can still try and show them and prove to them that what they do has consequences. Your 20-year-olds, I found a lot of time I was doing a lot of work in rural areas of KZN, where a lot of people have been bitten. And a lot of people, in fact, I think we lost 11 people to rabies, but literally being killed by dogs in 1 year that I was working this whole thing. And most of the time was alcohol. Really? So, you know, when you start drinking alcohol, your behavior changes and you become stupid. And then a dog goes, hold on, there's something wrong with you. So, and that's where, from the 20-year-olds upwards, that was where your primary problem or how can I call it, reason for the dog to bite was... So
are they fearful of that behavior, or are they frustrated? I mean, what is happening?
No, I wouldn't say the dogs are frustrated. I think it's just simply is that, hold on, something's wrong. Something's not right. And we change our behavior, which is not conducive to a dog's behavior. Feeling safe. Okay. Correct. But from a child's point of view, it's they just don't understand. They can't have a visual concept of what that is going through because they're more self-absorbed. Do you know what I mean? And we've all gone through it. So it's not. I'm not talking out going, oh, all those bloody kids are never like me. No. We were also like that. You know, it's all about me at that age.
Preservation at that age, isn't it?
Precisely. So I do believe that a lot of the time we are lacking in education. And even to schools. I mean, I hated school, absolutely despised it. I don't believe I learned anything. You know, I learned everything from actually doing as opposed to sitting in a classroom. But I think through education systems in the world, I'm not just talking here in South Africa or KZN, I'm talking globally because I work globally, is that we're just not equipping our youngsters enough with true life scenarios. And I find that is it's a lacking position which we could improve if somebody just simply opened up the concept, of education, of a proper education system for kids.
I mean, that from some of my conversations before with people like Funda Ninja, I mean, that is making a major difference to teach children from a very young age. And it improves the engagement between them and their dogs, which
Correct.
has such a knock-on effect.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a heartwarming discussion because, these children grow into young adults who often take on professions with animals because they now have just a different understanding and respect. And
absolutely.
it's wonderful.
Yes.
So that starting young and teaching the basic behaviors and how to manage dogs and how to treat them and how to care for them, that has been a topic of discussion before, and we've seen the outcome. So you made mention of rabies. Maybe it's a good point in our discussion to talk about the consequences of your dog biting, whether it's, let's start firstly, because it's my field, dog on dog. Your dog's attacked another dog. There's obviously now an injury. There's the behavior. Let's start first, before we talk about the longer term consequence, let's talk about the immediate thing. Your dog's attacking another dog. How do people deal with a situation where their dogs are in a fight so that they don't get bitten?
Yeah. And I cover that a lot when people come along and say, no, well, there's two dogs fighting now in the home. And sometimes the reasons being is that I often say to them before I even get involved is that please get your dogs to the vet, not because of a bite injury, okay, but a underlying issue. And a lot of the time it's one dog's weaker than the other. And therefore, and I've found cancer, I've found, kidney problems, I've found arthritis.
So is this when they've always been okay and then suddenly?
All of a sudden something they have like. So I say you must take those dogs to your vet to get a full-on veterinary examination and make sure, do everything, bloods, x-rays, whatever you have to do, okay, to make sure that we can treat that dog. And once you start treating it, problems go back to normality.
So I'm assuming that, obviously and I know how you consult, having used your services before, is that you go in and you'll get a history. You'll say, like, has anything changed? Have you introduced anything new? Have you moved furniture? And the discussion is very in-depth. And then assuming all those other things, or do you do it alongside that discussion? Do you say, look, we need to just make sure that this is not a contributing factor, that they're not, like you say, for example, in pain,
Correct.
And this one's being targeted? Or
yeah. So it is. I mean, it's part of the whole consult that I would do, but we just try and find out, especially if you get in older dogs. So your younger dog, 18 months, is now beating up on the 13-year-old one. Take the 13 to the vet. Because more than likely you haven't been to the vet for the last 4 years and you need to vaccinate it anyway. So take it to the vet and ask for a full clinical.
Yeah.
So we're resolving those issues initially. But what do we do if the dogs are attached to each other, biting? And a lot of people come along and go, no, well, the dogs are fighting and now I'm bitten and I'm doing this and I've got injuries and so on and so forth. Well, you were the one that stuck your hand in the dog's mouth, basically.
Or got in between.
Got in between of them.
So that is the first point. You don't get in between them.
Don't get in between.
Okay.
Just stay away from the heads.
Okay.
It sounds quite, I'm going to say aggressive, but in that case, the best option is to break them up as fast as possible. If you're in, your front garden and you've got a swimming pool, well, push both dogs in the pool and then rescue them. You know what I mean?
You certainly separate them, give them something else to worry about.
Exactly. They get away very, very quickly.
Okay.
Grabbing a bucket of water and throwing it over doesn't often happen or work properly because you don't often, it's not enough, it's not severe enough for them to break up and go.
And it's not readily available by the time you go.
Correct. You're not going to fill up a bucket and go, it's too late. So what I often suggest is, and of course we must be careful of not injuring the dog even further, but the aggressor, whoever the aggressor is, okay, grab its back legs and just walk them backwards. And often what happens by you holding their back legs, you're unbalancing them because their legs are off the ground now, okay? You're not jerking them,
no.
okay?
You're not hurting them.
You're not hurting them, but you're going and you're walking backwards. what's happening with that? The dog will like, no, it's going on behind me, okay? It's going to release the other dog and turn to you. Now, this is where you're also at danger. At that particular moment, what I've often done is I've then just turned the dog like a wheelbarrow and moved it in the opposite direction and let it go. You know? So now the one that was being attacked has now got the chance to create avoidance and move away from the scenario, okay? This one now looks and goes, oh, it's you, a person, because they're not normally, if they're in a family, they're not normally aggressive to other people or you're to the owner. But if you went along and grabbed their collar, for instance, your hand is so close to their mouth that just that grab is enough for the dog to whip around from a defensive point of view and nail you on your arm. And now the owner has also been bitten.
And we see it.
Often. And it's just, and I know the owners want to really and truthfully be, oh, shame, you know, stop this as soon as possible. But actually, hold on a minute. You know, you not having your use of your arm, your hand for even of a week is actually really detrimental to your livelihood. And I learned this many, many years ago when I was working in a veterinary practice I brought a dog in that was a bit dodgy. And the vet there said to me, Daniel, you're going to handle the dog. And I'd like you to muzzle it or handle it or do something because these are my livelihood. And I'm like, oh, come on, you're a vet. What's your damn problem? But he taught me a really, really good lesson to go, hold on a minute, he's right. You know, imagine one of your veterinary vets at your practice loses a hand. Well, they're not a vet anymore. It can be that simple. So it goes with anybody else. You know, it doesn't matter what job you've got, is that if you get bitten, you are now out of action for a while.
Yeah.
So be very, very, very careful of that. So that's what I'm saying. Grab the back legs, pull it backwards. As soon as the dog lets go, move it to the side, and then let it go. And then you're going to say to the dog, stop, leave it, no, whatever the words you use.
You've got their attention then.
You've got their attention then.
Okay.
And normally, that's enough. It normally is enough.
And the next steps? So let's say, okay, there's a moment, now you see that there's injuries. What is your advice to people who phone you like they've just been in a fight, the one's bleeding, there's a wound? What are the next steps?
So from a dog point of view, when they're injured, you know, first of all, is it life-threatening? When I say is it life-threatening, you know, have they hit a jugular? You know, which we have had once.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we're going to go, well, if it is a jugular and it's around the throat, and they go, well, put pressure and get it to the vet. Sometimes it's not enough. It really isn't. It's just going to be too late, you know. Something can bleed out in 12 seconds if it's a bad jugular. So you've got those kind of issues. But most of the time, it's a skin injury. So yes, stop the bleeding, wash it out if you want, but get it to your vet. You know, there is 24-hour vets available. So get it to your vet immediately. I had a guy who phoned me up just the other day, and he had a neighbour's dog come into his property and attack one of his dogs. And I said to him, well, I'm so sorry to hear that, but have you taken that dog to the vet yet? And he goes, no, not yet. I'm on my way home. It happened this morning. I'm like, what? Why didn't you pick your dog up immediately and take it to the vet? But he went to work. Come on, guys.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, let's sort out that problem immediately, because the longer you leave it, the more chance of infection. You know, I'm not the vet, and it's painful.
Yeah.
The dog starts changing everything. Now you come home, the dog's been in pain for the whole day, and now you want to pick it up. There's a good chance it's going to bite you now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So get it sorted as soon as you possibly can.
While there's adrenaline pumping and they're not feeling that.
Correct. Let the vet deal with that problem by putting it in a kennel and giving it some meds just to calm it down. Early treatment is better.
Yeah. And I think, you know, from my perspective, I do want to add, just as we're talking about this, and there's a lot of misconception, particularly when we're seeing fight wounds coming in and they want to have an understanding of the costs associated with it. It's a bit like that iceberg effect that you can see a certain amount, but the damage often that's created is, and it requires surgical intervention and exploration. And what I mean by that is, you know, they need to be anesthetized. You can't just be poking and prodding, you know, your equipment in there to look and see the extent of the injury. And these can actually be a lot worse under the surface. And so, you know, what people may think is a tiny hole can be a complete laceration in the underlying muscle. Or even worse if we're dealing with abdominal or, you know, like you said before, you know, torn blood vessels.
Yeah.
So yeah, urgent attention is
Urgent attention.
great.
And I talk from experience now, is that a dog bit me. I won't tell you what type of dog. You're discussing.
You have to now.
Yeah. It was a Rottweiler.
Oh, no.
And it grabbed in a leg,
Sure.
just here. And there was no puncture. When I say puncture, there was a bit of scraping, but there was no deep puncture wounds. But the damage it did 3 days after the bite was just, I was like amazed.
The bruising.
And what it must have done is that grabbed the skin and actually torn everything underneath.
Yeah.
And that's when you're saying tearing the skin away from your muscle. That's where those extra injuries are coming into.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's where you have to explore, and really look at it.
So let's talk now that you've mentioned obviously bacterial infection and pain and whatnot. You've discussed, well, you've made mention of rabies. I think, often what happens is people panic, especially if they say their dogs have got out of the gate and they've bitten someone walking down the road. I'm using a scenario because I know in South Africa that happens. And now there's a liability issue. People are very concerned about the rabies status. People phone and they're like, we need our vaccination card up to date. Or can we talk about that? Like, where does the responsibility lie when you've got a bite on a human? Like, what happens? Like, how do people tackle that as well?
So there's a lot of legal requirements or legal things that we can actually look at. And we can look at it from both sides, from an owner or from a victim. And from an owner point of view, in my opinion, we're in KZN. Get your dogs vaccinated every year. I mean, there's just, come on. There's enough free vaccines available.
Are we talking rabies or are you talking general?
Rabies,
yeah.
Okay? Because that's what you're looking at from a bite point of view.
Yeah.
From a legal point of view, if a dog bites you, we're not worried about your distemper and 5-in-1s and stuff like that. So, but it is a legal requirement for a rabies vaccination. So there is enough, like your practice offers at least 2 times a year free vaccinations on rabies.
So this is not an affordability, there's no excuse.
This is no excuse, okay? It's just your time, just make the time to get it done. And then what really blows my mind is, they'll phone up the practice and they'll say, can I have a proof of my vaccination? Why don't you keep it? We've given it to you already, keep it. So it's readily available if something happens, okay? If a dog is on your property, so for instance, if one of your dogs bit me, okay, and I'm on your property, we deal with it between us. It's not really a legal issue or a municipal issue or a regional court issue, okay, because it's on your property. And we would then deal with the problem. If your dog was outside, like you've said, your dog rushes out the gate because on rubbish day, okay, and somebody does get bitten, a member of the public. So that has now just opens up so many complications to you, the owner. So you've got the municipal bylaws, you've got the Animal Matters Amendment Act, okay, which that act there is if it gets prosecuted, it's a really strenuous act where potentially your dog could be euthanized, depending on the circumstances, of course. But you are liable. You're 100% liable for that damage your dog has done. Also the same thing if you go down to the park, your dog's running around in the park and it munches somebody, okay? Bam, you are liable. You have taken that dog out into the public and it doesn't matter what the person is doing to your dog. Unfortunately, the law says dog injuring person, not the other way around, okay? If a person was injuring your dog, then it would fall under the Animal Protection Act, then it's a different story. But under the Animal Matters Amendment Act, that is it. It's a liability. If your dog attacks another dog, that's a personal thing. It's a small claims court, it's that kind of story, and a municipal bylaw problem, not a criminal law problem.
Okay.
So there's a lot of different things that we can look at, and I see it often, and people ask me a lot of times where, my dog's bitten this, or I was bitten by this dog. Well, where were you? What were you doing? So on and so forth. Yeah. And the friendship has now broken because they're actually visiting a friend, having a beer and having a braai, and the dog bit them because they wouldn't give them the steak. Well, deal with it. But if it's on the road in a public area, no, you're at risk of being, prosecuted.
So there really is a responsibility for pet owners to manage this and manage it from a behavioral perspective as well as a security perspective in terms of keeping their dogs within their property.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And I find that some people, we've had some of your clients lost dogs because people are just irresponsible. They've just let their dog go, and they know really well that their dog is not a sociable dog and has run off and killed the smaller dog and potentially put the owners at serious risk because they're trying to save their little dog. And I know one of our clients has actually had bad dog bites because they picked up the little dog and the big dog attacked her and the little dog.
Sure.
I'm like, come on, and we know that dog is unsociable and it was out your property. You should be prosecuted. Like really, I'm over it,
So there's a big responsibility to, if you can't manage your dog's behavior, you shouldn't be owning that dog.
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
Okay, so that is some of the advice. I mean, I've been in this situation with you before, and I won't sort of take the time in this podcast to discuss it, but, obviously I tried to take on another dog, and the two of them were just always, and we really worked very hard to manage the two dogs together, and it was just not going to happen. The responsible thing was to then find another solution for the dog, rather than have a situation where, like you say, someone got in the way between them. Or,
correct, yeah.
Or
those two got out, and it was children around, things like that. It's just not safe. I'll always stick up for the dog because we always look at it from the dog's point of view. There's not enough voices for the dogs. But sometimes the dog is also the problem. And we must look at that side of it, is that it's not always the human issue, but if the owner is doing the right thing and the right decisions and stuff like that, and the dog is still being the aggressor, then sometimes, and I'm saying sometimes, it's not always, but sometimes we need to look at it from a practical point of view. It's the wrong, a lot of people think it's the wrong decision, but sometimes euthanasia is the answer. And it's simply because we can.
Yeah.
It's not the easiest way out, or sometimes people think it's the easiest way out. It's not the only way out.
It's humane.
But it's humane. So I have advised a number of times where people have come along and gone this and this and this and this, but it's happening too much. And no matter what we've put in place, the dog is still now enjoying biting people. Actually, it's going to kill someone just now. And what would you rather have?
Yeah.
Humane euthanasia, and get on with life, or have a member of the family actually get killed by this dog. So that's extreme, of course. And we've gone from, a toddler creeping over a dog that the toddler has no idea.
But it's important to explain the various situations, we can encounter with regards to.
I do find that in this country, people are more tolerant and will work through issues a lot more easier and go, okay, let's give the opportunity to try and fix it. I mean, I've just been traveling to Timor-Leste doing rabies control up there. And the awareness on rabies is working, okay, it really is working, but it's very, very severe for the dog. Where a dog bites somebody, the community just kills it. Like there and then, in the street, beats it to death. I'm like, this is just, it's heart-wrenching, and I'm trying to get to them going, but don't. There's reasons for this, and again, it creates a better awareness. We have to be able to go, hold on, we vaccinated all these dogs. We don't want to go and kill them. We want to keep them there. But why don't we change the people's attitude, people's behavior, to not accept a dog bite? No, not at all. But let's prevent it.
Yeah.
And I believe we can do it. I believe we have the opportunity, we have the knowledge. We just have to make them believe, and I say them, the greater community, believe that it can actually be done.
So my final question to you, and I know we're not going to talk breeds, but let's talk pairing the right dog with the right home. Because I think, we started our conversation where we said we're actually putting a lot of pressure on these dogs. If you've got a family and you've got young kids around, you are going to, you're going to have one breed or one type of breed, or maybe it's you've got to get some hamsters or get a cat.
Get a goldfish.
But the selection people need to make, or the kind of considerations people need to take into account when they work or when they have a family. Like, is that also where it starts? You know, not to put yourself in a situation where you go, oh, I just love bull terriers, they're so cute, and not know anything about that breed.
Yeah. I find that it's a common problem where I would go to someone's house and they go, yeah, but I work from 8 to 5, you know, but you've just adopted another dog. Why? Well, because I bought the house. So to buy a house, they have to have a dog.
So a security thing.
Well, I don't know really. Sometimes is that many years ago in my previous life when I was animal welfare, you know, full-time animal welfare, I go to people's homes and go, why do you have a dog? They go, because my grandmother had one.
Okay.
Like, it's a thing. You know what I mean? It's like, well, you know, have your dining table, you have a dog. It's the same thing. So from that point of view, I think the reason for having a dog is wrong. That's my opinion.
Okay.
You know, we often do have security systems. People come along and go, no, it's for security reasons. Well, get an electric fence because actually it'll serve you better than you coming home and neglecting a dog because you actually don't have the time for it. But yeah, so pairing up decent breeds or better breeds with different people, there are a lot of breeds. There certainly are. And I always go along and go, get a dog from the shelter. You know, there's loads of dogs out there. Don't support breeders if you don't, just because they're cute, it doesn't mean that they're going to actually settle in your house. I find that your older folk have smaller breeds that they can cope with, so they eat less. They can sit on their lap. They keep them company. If they walk, they don't often walk too fast.
Or pull,
you know, exactly. So from that point of view, it's great that if you are able to have a small dog when you're in your older ages, that's the kind. Don't go along and get a border collie if you're 80. You know, it's also an age thing, not necessarily your activity thing. But then again, you know, you're looking at your mental requirements from the dog. You got your retrievers that are just happy to lie by your feet, but they're big dogs.
Yeah.
But then you also have, you know, your bull terriers, your border collies, those kind of breeds that just need to be active all the time. And I put one on the extreme because people think bull terriers are just silly, stupid, lazy dogs. No, they're not.
They're very active.
They're very, very active dogs, and they really do need to be stimulated. Border collies, on the other hand, are just crazies. I love them, absolutely love them, but they do need a lot of stimulation. But then again, you overstimulate them, and you have this this dog that is now, it's built up a requirement that you have to stimulate it all the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but then it comes down to, hold on a minute, what about training? What about taking those dogs to actually dog trainers and working through those kind of scenarios? So when you say calm, the dog calms down. When you say run after the ball, the dog runs after the ball. In fact, it was quite funny. Just one of my clients phoned me yesterday, and a really, really nice lady, and she's got a little dog. She got a puppy when she was one of her older breeds. It was an old dog, and it's now passed away. Okay, but her younger dog now is just over a year old, and it's an active dog. She's an active lady, so she takes it for walks every single morning, things like that. But she also has to. She runs a business, and she has to periodically go to work. And she feels so bad that she leaves her little dog now at home. So she's phoning me up to say, can she possibly get another dog? You know, what is my opinion about getting another puppy to keep it company? But what she said to me was quite interesting. She goes, throughout all my years, she's never taken any of her dogs for training. Never. Except for this last dog.
Okay.
And she says, I came to your puppy classes. I've now come to classes every single week, okay? She goes, I cannot believe the benefit it has had in my life and the dog's life. just going to training. And I'm like, well, I pity she can't say that to everybody. You know what I mean? Because I do, yes, it's our business, but I do find that people don't understand the benefit of it. And if you're not getting something out of a dog trainer, go to another one.
Yeah.
And I'm very open. I mean, like, I don't want to lose clients. And if you don't like me, well, tell me why, because I'd like to improve. But if you don't like me, there's so many others around. Go to somebody else that you do resonate with. But it is so, so, so important to get that dog social, get it out, get it mentally stimulated, get it physically stimulated, and you're going to have such a better dog at home that won't bite you, that you'll understand it better, so you can actually preempt stuff before it happens.
Absolutely.
It's just, as I say, it's education.
Yeah, and awareness.
And awareness.
And the benefit, parting statement, the benefit of having access to a trainer or a behaviourist and having that discussion. So even when those small signs start to show, you can have corrective measures put in place very early on.
Yes.
Often you're contacted when something goes really wrong. What you're wanting is, they go through their puppy school and they continue training and people are continuously engaged so that when there's something that flags up, you can manage it with them.
Yes.
And usually you can get it right.
Yeah, nip it in the bud before it starts anything.
Yeah. And those dogs are ready to learn. They know how to learn. It's part of that process. So.
Correct. And it's the same thing. I mean, people come along and go, well, why did my child not pass school? Well, you didn't pick it up fast enough. And it's exactly the same thing in my opinion, where if you pick up what your children are doing at home, is it working at school for you? And if it is, then it's great. But if it's not, then we fix it. Adjust. Even it's adjust the school. It's really, really important.
No, that's great.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
Great.
Always such an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
And if people want to get hold of you, how do they contact you? I mean, obviously we'll put some details in the
cell phone and WhatsApp is always the best option.
Yeah.
Emails are really difficult because I very seldom.
You're very busy.
I'm very busy. I don't sit in front of a computer. So yes, my cell phone 0766 582 574. And then, as I say, if I don't answer it, send a WhatsApp. Even if I'm sitting in a different country on a different time zone, I will get back to you. It might be a day later, but I will definitely get back to you. And I don't mind helping people.
No, you don't.
Online, it doesn't really matter. We're benefiting the dog or the animal.
And cats.
And cats.
People can contact you about cats as well.
Absolutely. And I think it's, just to conclude, if I can, is that just finishing off the idea behind overstimulating a dog by picking it up all the time, patting it all the time, bothering it all the time, it also goes for cats. A lot of people come along and go, every time I touch my cat's stomach, it scratches me. Well, don't touch the cat's stomach. It's that simple.
Yeah.
You're overstimulating the animal.
Yeah.
Also with parrots. Parrots bite like buggery, and people go, oh, look. And the bird bites your finger off. And you're going to go, well, why did you do that? Stop teasing the animals, But, if you do need help, by all means, it's absolutely wonderful to hear from everybody. And if you need help, then give us a call. And, of course, you can also get my details through Hillcrest Veterinary Hospital. They're always giving it out, which is great. Yeah. But Cora, thank you.
No, thank you.
It's awesome seeing you guys again.
Yeah,
years
thank you
later.
for celebrating 1 year with
absolutely.
with us.
I think it's brilliant.
Yeah.
And
I'm sure we're going to have more discussion.
Yeah, it's
going forward.
all good.
Yeah, you're a wealth of information, so it's great to tap into.
Yeah.
Very interesting stuff. And very helpful.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
And
Keep
brilliant.
well.
See you guys soon.
Thank you for tuning into this episode. If you've found it helpful, be sure to check out our previous episodes, including our discussion on the cost of veterinary care in South Africa. Follow us on your preferred podcast platform, leave a review, and share any questions or comments that you may have. Until next time, take care of yourselves and your beloved pets, and don't forget to give them a hug from me.
We have an exciting announcement to make. We are looking for guest speakers who are passionate about the pet industry and sponsors to support future episodes. Are you an expert in pet training, nutrition, or behaviour? Maybe you're a veterinarian with insights to share, a pet store owner with unique experiences, or a pet product inventor. We want to hear from you. The Pause and Effect podcast is a platform for industry professionals like you to showcase your knowledge, experiences, and stories. As a guest speaker on our podcast, you'll have the opportunity to share valuable information, engage with our audience, and have your voice heard in the pet community. Whether you want to discuss training techniques, emerging pet care trends, or the importance of mental stimulation for pets, we want to feature you and your expertise. So, if you're passionate about pets and have something to say, we invite you to join us on an upcoming episode of the Pause and Effect podcast. But wait, that's not all. The Pause and Effect podcast is also seeking sponsors to support our mission of educating and entertaining pet lovers worldwide. By becoming a sponsor, you'll gain exposure to our engaged audience and have your brand associated with the love and care that we have for our four-legged friends. If you own a pet-related business, offer pet products or services, or simply want to align your brand with our pet-loving community, we'd love to partner with you. As a sponsor, your brand will be featured prominently in our episodes and our social media channels. It is a great opportunity to showcase your offerings to a dedicated audience of pet enthusiasts. So whether you're an expert in the pet industry looking to share your knowledge, or a business seeking to reach a pet-loving audience, we want to hear from you. To apply as a guest or to inquire about becoming a sponsor of the Pause and Effect podcast, please contact me at drkara@pauseandeffect.co.za. Get in touch and let's discuss the various opportunities. Thank you for joining us today. We can't wait to welcome our future guest speakers and sponsors to the Pause and Effect podcast. Remember, every episode is an opportunity to celebrate our four-legged friends.